All right, all right, all right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, my right hand man, Lou. We are coming off of championship weekend with the AFC and NFC championships. Yet another weekend of very close and competitive playoff games. We now know who the Super Bowl participants will be, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. We'll get to those championship games here, Lou, in just a second. But we do inch closer to the official off season where things heat up for us, and covering and starting this weekend with the Senior Bowl. Before you know it, we'll be into free agency. And shortly thereafter, we're going to have the 2022 NFL draft knocking on our front door. I know you're excited. This is, it feels like this is always like your time of year to get into the free agency, all the nuggets around that, cap casualties, things that we'll cover in short order. But I know you are fanatical about the draft, and I know now both of our teams are out of this equation, so you have to be excited for this time of year.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now. Being that I follow a mediocre franchise, I'll be the first one to say I think the off season is way better than the regular season. It's like when you were young. Remember back in the day, you used to look at the Toys R Us catalog, what toys you wanted to pick out. Then you got them, you're excited. Then 2 days later, you never played with them again. So the anticipation of the season's always greater than the season itself. When you follow a mediocre team. Now, if you follow a good franchise, it's always competitive. I.e. the Chiefs or what have you, the Patriots. Then no, this is a stupid thing to say. But for me, in my standpoint, this is my shopping for Christmas for myself type stuff.
Love it. So before we dive into today's actual topic, so we'll recap the championship games. Spoiler alert, we're going to give out our end of year awards, and we're going to reflect back on our mid-year awards and how those might differ. Some will, some probably won't, based on performances. But there's been some other pretty wild things that have been brought to light in the league over this past week. Candidly, for me, Lou, it's not surprising news, but it now has very public light being casted upon it, and it relates to an all too familiar and an all too unfair hiring practices and behind the scenes shenanigans, as it relates to obtaining head coaching jobs in the NFL. So at the center of this is Brian Flores, the former Miami Dolphin head coach and longtime New England assistant. But what's unique here is the story actually has two fronts to it.
Mm-hmm.
One that seems like it's just been a common theme, indicative of the institution of a thing called the Rooney Rule in the first place. That seems to just be a joke to a lot of these NFL teams, and something that is constantly just, I don't want to say overlooked, but boxes checked to just do enough so that ownership and teams can ultimately get to the person that they want in the first place. But there's a unique element to this as well. Now, I mean, a term we're all familiar with is tanking, but now there appears to be dollars and cents associated to coaches tanking. So I want to start with why this story is as ugly as it is. And I'm going to start with, to me, the lesser of the two evils. And that's the indication by Brian Flores and now even Hugh Jackson bringing this to light post this conversation, that ownership has approached coaches to pay them to purposely lose games to have better draft position.
Can I cut you off
Now,
right there? If
yeah,
that
yeah.
is if that is true, wouldn't you Jackson be on the Forbes top 100 list?
Yes, if he agreed to it, right? Like if you look at the actual losses,
I mean that
yes.
that guy should be loaded.
Yeah, it seems like he got a low ball number though in comparison. I think it was like 50K a loss, where Flores was being
Well,
offered
well, yeah,
100K per loss.
you have to understand inflation, different markets. Yeah, I mean, of course. That was years ago with Hugh Jackson. But go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to cut
But
you off there.
no, you're fine. But I do feel like the story has a little bit of merit, right? Like, I don't think Brian Flores brings it to attention if he doesn't have evidence to back it up in the first place, right? Because then it's just like hearsay. But to be paid or offered $100,000 to lose games by an owner that has direct affiliations with gambling companies, like you're in Pete Rose territory now, right? Where you're like
Stole the words out of
literally
my mouth. You're right.
like you're making hundreds of millions off of your 100,000 that you're willing to pay to control the game. And what I love all more about it is Brian Flores going, fuck you, I'm going to win 8 out of 9. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love that. But to me, that's just like, that's egg on the face for the NFL. And they have to do something about that. Like, if they can prove that that was actually something that took place, and I believe it is. I don't believe Brian Flores just to make that allegation without some merit to it. Jeffrey Ross has to be forced to sell the Miami Dolphins. Like, I don't see another alternative there.
100% agree. He is messing with the integrity of the game. This would be so. If this is true, and there has to be some merit, you can just tell. Why else would you fire a coach who's had success? We stated on the show when he first got fired, Flores, that hey, one of the reasons why was not performance, it was more he clashed upper management, right? That's what we literally said, and that's what the rumors that were going around. Lo and behold, did we know that the clash of upper management, if there's a little smoke there, was probably the tanking of the season and other things as well. So yeah, you're agree. When you're messing with the integrity of the game, this would be so easy for the NFL to rectify this issue. All you have to do is look over to your sister sport, Major League Baseball, see what they did, Pete Rose, boom, you get out of there. You're no longer affiliated with the sport whatsoever because you're right. You're messing with the integrity of the game. You're also messing with revenues, and also with they're in bed with gambling and what have you. So yeah, Ross has to be forced to sell that team.
You're going to hear me say this a couple times, but the NFL is only as good as its brand and its reputation. And they've come out and said that, right? Like that shield represents a brand, and this is going to tarnish the brand tremendously. I mean, you're talking about essentially fixing games, right? And like with a league that is so now embedded with legalized sports gambling in certain states, like that's just a bad look. And here's the reality.
I was going to say real quick, you think that the Dolphins are only one that did this? What about the Eagles that one year?
Yeah.
What about the Eagles? You don't think they tanked, man? Come on. They pulled starters and stuff like that in the middle of a game and they were up. And come on.
I don't think Ross came up with this idea on his own, right? This is a tight-knit community. He probably has heard this through the grapevine, figured he can do it because like every owner in the NFL, they get away with shit left and right. But for the NFL, based on these other allegations from Brian Flores and many other coaches prior to him taking a stance, this seems to be the one that you can correct immediately.
Mm-hmm. Quick and swift.
Yeah, like you can just like literally like put this to bed. Now here's
like a guillotine. Chop it off, let it,
it's over. Head of the snake, gotta go, right? But so I said that was the lesser of two evils because this other one is a problem that just continuously plagues the NFL, and you hear about it every single offseason. You hear about it directly from coaches who feel like they're not getting, or potential coaches that don't feel like they're getting a full shake. You hear it in the form of the NFL penalizing teams in some capacity of not adhering to the Rooney Rule, which to listeners unfamiliar with it, I hope you are familiar with this. The Rooney Rule signifies that in your coaching search, specifically for your head coach, you have to interview at least one. The term would be minority coach, but a coach from an underrepresented group or community, right? Like that's what it really boils down to be much more politically correct. And teams do it, but they don't do it efficiently. They do it to check the box, right? There are plenty of coaches of color and very specific backgrounds that are more than capable. But the NFL, and we all know this, we've always known this, it's just full of the good old boys, right? That are just, this conglomerate that sits above you, billionaires that want to hire the people they know, want to hire the people that they quote unquote trust. And it's always been, well before this, about relationships. And those relationships tend to be with predominantly white coaches. Fair or unfair, that's the reality of the scenario. The unfair element of it is, again, they're like look at Brian Flores, right? Like, don't tell me this guy is not a qualified coach, right? Like, there are plenty of again, coaches of color that will give their team the same, if not better, opportunities to win than the traditional quote unquote, white coach out there. And these allegations are serious, right? Like, and it's brought to light when you got someone like Bill Belichick texting the wrong guy. This is why the elderly shouldn't have technology in their hands, right? Like, he just couldn't figure. I'm more impressed that he's got an iPhone when all said and done, right? But like, texting the wrong guy, and it calls out a legacy dynasty in the New York Giants and John Mara, who's one of the good old boys, back to his father, Wellington Mara, being called out that, like, hey, we already know we're going to hire Brian Daboll, and we're just checking the box here with Brian Flores, right? Like, and I believe every element of this, because I know it happens every year for these teams. I believe every element. Then you see, like, hey, they showed up to, when he went to go interview for the Denver Broncos, Elway and company showing up hammered, untucked, like hungover from the night before, not taking it seriously. It just constantly repeats itself in so many forms. And I applaud Brian Flores because he's become and will become the Colin Kaepernick of coaches. Colin Kaepernick sacrificed his NFL career for something that he believed in and spoke out about social injustice and things of those issues as a player with his forum. Brian Flores is doing it as a coach using his forum. And I know he's still like in the running for a couple spots and whatnot. And I think, honestly, that's some teams like trying to save face. Like, hey, like, we understand the allegations, but we love this guy. We want to interview him. Don't know if he'll be hired. Don't know if he'll ever get a head coaching job in the NFL ever again, because the reality is ownerships are not going to want that distraction and what comes with it. So again, I applaud Brian Flores. He took a giant leap of faith in doing this and sabotaging essentially and sabotaging is not the right word. Crushing his hopes and his dreams in a game that he loves and something that he is clearly good at by going out on that limb. And that's why I believe all of these allegations are true to the T. Like, I don't for one second think there's any fabrication in what he is saying took place, because we know this takes place. You hear owners make comments all the time. Like, what was it the Houston Texans owner said the one time? This is what happens when you let the inmates run the asylum, or something along those lines, right? Like, this is the mentality of the good old boys and these executive members of the NFL, i.e. the owners. And it's sad. Like, I feel bad for Brian Flores, but I hope it casts enough light that the NFL says the Rooney Rule is not enough. There needs to be more. I don't know what more is. I'm not educated enough to say what more is, but there has to be more, and there has to be harsher punishments for not adhering to the rules and the guidelines that's set. But my biggest fear, Lou, and I'll let you comment on this, is that the NFL does what it always does, flexes its muscle, make sure that none of this gets investigated, pays out whoever they needs to pay out, slaps a couple fines on a couple teams, revokes a couple draft picks, and sweeps it right under the rug. Because the one thing I can promise you, and I would bet my life and the life of my family on this, that if they went digging, right, if the Supreme Court gets involved in this and they hire their own outside investigation team, the NFL will come tumbling down. And they know that. And they know that because, as intelligent as these owners are to get to where they are in life, they have all cut corners. They have all done shady things. They have all done that. And they, honestly, and forgive my language, probably didn't give a fuck along the way while they were doing it. So they probably didn't care to even cover tracks in any capacity because they knew that fraternity was always going to protect each other and sweep it under the rug. So the NFL is going to have to do what they have to do, but they do not want this being investigated by an outside source because it's not going to end well, because it's not going to just be about Brian Flores. It's going to be about 40 to 50 other minority coaches that have gone through this exact same scenario.
I mean, you hit everything, nail right on the head, right there. And getting back to that Rooney Rule, correct me if I'm wrong. Did that established with the Steelers because of Mike Tomlin and everything that they just brought him in to interview, and they were blown away by him, and they had no intention of hiring Mike Tomlin. Like they wanted someone else. But the fact that is that how it's? Are you familiar? Is that how it's how the Rooney Rule kind of like stemmed out?
I'd be speaking out of turn if I said exactly when. It sounds familiar, sounds about right from a timing perspective as to how long the Rooney Rule's been around, specifically because the Rooney family owns the Pittsburgh Steelers, so it would make sense. But if I said it was that exact scenario, I'd be speaking out of turn.
I thought it was something like that. I might be misspoken here. In theory, great idea, the Rooney Rule, because it was at the forefront of addressing something that was never even mentioned back then. So great idea. Unfortunately, that it's just a theory and it's poor execution, from here on out. And people are going to do, people in power are going to do what they want to do, and they're going to find loopholes to do what they want to do. And that's exactly what's been establishing. Now, you were saying, hey, I don't know what, how to change the system, what have you. And unfortunately, there's two ways you can do it: positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. I don't know how negative reinforcement to teams and how that would be judged or determine hey, you did not do justice when it comes to authentically interviewing minority candidates. So that then leads me to the positive reinforcement. If you were just like what they did recently, I think if you hired a coordinator, a minority coordinator to a promotion, the other team gets additional draft compensation. Why can't they do it with head coaching now too? Yeah. So why can't they if you just hire a minority head coach, you receive additional draft compensation. I feel like that could be the beginning of a start to changing what's these loopholes. But if I have a difference of opinion, I think there's Brian Flores' truth. There could be the New York Giants and John Mara's truth. And then there's the real truth. And I'm sure there's something in between. And when I'm saying that is we really don't know the fact that if this was racially motivated. They could just been floored by Brian Dabble. I mean, Brian Dabble has been getting a lot of play these last couple of years. It's not like he's came out of nowhere. This isn't like Joe Judge. Do you see what I'm saying? Brian Dabble was a big commodity, and these last 2 years. So maybe they really liked him, but you're in HR, you understand, and you still want to interview as many candidates as possible just to see just to see pretty much, hey, maybe there's something we're missing here, or maybe there's another role for this person or what have you. So we don't know the real truth. So it should be interesting as things fold out. But I am 100% on board, Jeffrey Ross. If this, I agree with you. I think 100% that happened. You can probably tell some of the things that happened by the fighting between this. All the Tua Fitzpatrick thing now makes sense.
Yep.
Pulling Tua for Fitzpatrick to win the games. That's a big FU I felt by Flores, and I think that really was the reason why. The part of the reason why he got fired. And especially things came out that he didn't want Tua in the draft and what have you. So there's a lot to cipher out here. I will disagree with you with this. I feel like the NFL has been down this road before, and we've heard this just like the world. The world's going to end in 3 years, Weston. The world's been ending since it's formed. Since it's been formed. That we hear this all the time. This could be the death blow to the NFL, and I hate to say this, but I think the NFL is kind of Teflon. Because of the product. and because the popularity and the globalization of it soon to be. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree in the sense of the Teflon. I think the real way that the league comes tumbling down is once the players start like uniting and taking stances and doing those things, because they are the product, right? The players are the product when all said and done. People don't go to the game to watch the coaches; they go watch the players. And these individuals are usually talented enough that along the lines they can say like, "Oh, I could just go play baseball. I could go play in the NBA. I can go do something different." Versus playing in the NFL. And that starts at the youth, right? Like, where do they focus their efforts? So that can change things. My biggest fear is no matter what the instituted change might be, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, like whatever it is it just feels forced, right? And it feels fake. It doesn't feel genuine. I do agree you have to start somewhere to make this reality and just bridge the equity gap that is the NFL, right? Like, there's no other way to explain it. I think what would be most glaring and obvious is if there was more minority owners in the NFL, right? Like, then it would just have a different framework. But you can take a look around the NFL and there aren't. You know what I mean? It's not. So I don't know. And I'd be stepping out of turn if I was like, this is what should take place. This is what shouldn't take place. What I know is that like it's happening way too frequently. The fraternity that is the NFL is letting these owners just get away with it with like slaps on the wrist, slaps on the wrist, slaps on the wrist. And I think something needs to be done. I'm just not sure what that something is.
Yeah, I think that's above both of our pay grades.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. But like, it is subject matter that I am interested in. I've always been interested in. It is subject matter that, um, I will be tuned into, right? And does reflect even my outlook on the NFL. And maybe it was the way I was raised or whatever it is, but it's, you know, the belief in the Smith household is there's a fair shake of the leg for everyone and anyone, regardless of where you come from, or what group you represent. It's that's it, man. We're all equal. We're all people. We all bleed. We all have hearts. That's just what it is. And like this tarnishes that a little bit for me, and maybe even more so as an adult, where it's more glaringly obvious. Where as a child, you don't see those things in a league that you love. But now, an adult, you not only see it in the real world, you see it in things that are distractions from the real world for you, but yet the real world continues to like rear its ugly head in those regards. So
Now,
again,
Weston, yeah, I'll tell you right now, we've disagreed a lot on this show, I would say, through the first like 38, 37 episodes and what have you. But this is something I think I can honestly say 100% I'm in lockstep with you and 100% agree.
and it's something that this show will stay tuned on. I know we only have a couple million followers, but like we will.
Got to start somewhere, though.
Yeah, and I will be heavily tuned into this throughout the season and moving forward, and now more of the off season when it's going to be a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
For first and foremost. So, all right, we digress. More to come. So let's get into.
Hold on. Before we get into these games,
Yeah.
let's make a little light of the situation. We, I think a week or two ago, we talked about, when you went to Green Bay, how sick your Mitchell and Ness 49ers satin jacket was, that gold satin jacket. So I had to dig out of the archives a little hotness myself. And
I see it. I see the shoulders.
Boom.
Woo! Look at
Boom.
that powder blue in there.
Mitchell and Ness. This is San Diego Chargers, by the way. This is old. This is how throwback.
They'll always be the San Diego Chargers to me.
But Mitchell and Ness, white and powder blue, baby.
Pop your collar, bro. Pop your collar. That is fire, man. Listen, I love those powder blues, but
it goes well with my eyes.
It does make them pop.
It makes them pop. Yeah,
makes your hair stand out too.
Yeah.
That being said, Obviously, it was championship weekend, AFC Championship, NFC Championship. I'm just going to go in order of the games here. So the early afternoon, late afternoon for us Sunday game was the Cincinnati Bengals, Houday, versus Chiefs.
What a
Lou, I've been
great
talking.
game, right? This
It,
is a great game.
it was a great game.
Great outcome too.
Yeah, didn't yeah, especially for a fan of the AFC West. I'll tell you this much: did a little bit to dispel your misconception of the overtime rules and winning the
Oh,
coin toss,
kind
didn't
of
it?
was. I know.
Didn't it? Didn't it?
I listen, Weston, when in
When that
overtime, right?
happened, you were like, "Damn it!"
No. In overtime, when the Chiefs won the toss, I'm like, one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to be justified, for my beliefs and I was accurate, or the Chiefs
Or
are
you're
going
going to
to
be
lose.
crucified.
No, or the Chiefs are going to lose. And it was a win-win. It was a
Yeah.
win-win for me.
I just found it funny when they won the toss, how the entire stadium was basically like celebrating a win before it even happened, completely neglecting what had taken place over the previous 2.5 quarters from that offense. I think they felt like it just looked like the Bills game where offenses were rolling. But I talked a lot on our previous topic, so I'll let you kick this one off. Give me your thoughts on the game.
Great game, better outcome. I mean, at the end of the first half, I probably thought the same exact thing. This game is over. This game is done. It's 21-3, right?
It was
And
21-3 at one point. Yep.
and everyone, it was a big stop by the Bengals right before halftime. Instead of kicking the field goal, the Chiefs decided to go for it to be up 28-3. Fantastic play by Eli Apple on Tyreek Hill to keep it 21-3. Announcers made a big deal of it, but I'm like, what are you making a big deal of it? The Chiefs got the ball back anyway in the second half. So what? The Bengals stopped the bleeding for 15 minutes, and then they had to go back out there in the second half. Uh, the second half was completely different, and kudos to the Bengals defensive coordinator. I don't even know his name, but that's ignorant of me, but I should know his name. He literally changed his game plan to rushing only 3 pass rushers for the predominantly the second half and dropping 8 in coverage, and that messed up with Mahomes. There's no which way you can say Mahomes choked. His QBR in the second half was 1.4. All right, that is awful. And it wasn't like they were really pressuring Mahomes in the second half. It was more of, like I said, them dropping 8 in coverage, which is kind of crazy because Mahomes had 4 seconds. He averaged 4 seconds on throwing attempts in the second half. So when you have 4 seconds, you think you can get between Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, and all those other guys, you think you can get someone open. And there's no ifs and buts. I personally think Mahomes, choked in the second half, and I'm starting to think Mahomes is a fantastic quarterback. He is. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. However, I'm starting to see some chinks in the armor in regards to more of on the mental side. I know the physical, he can run, he has a cannon for his arm, but if his guys are not out there making making plays for him, I have him trouble. Find him. This year was eye opening. He's having a little more trouble trusting the plays and his reads and what have you. It's just more of like backyard football, I feel like, and when that doesn't go his way, it gets ugly. It gets ugly pretty quick, in my opinion. So that's from like on the Kansas City standpoint. Um, Now Burrow, on the other hand, on the flip side, he was smart. He was clutch. When people keep on talking about the intangibles of Burrow, this is the game you want to point to. This Kansas City game that's evident of his intangibles. He made some fantastic scrambles when he was pressured. I feel like that's something he normally doesn't do, but it's just that his awareness to avoid the pressure and slide in the pocket, and escape that pressure was fantastic. He had 3 scrambles and a quarterback sneak on third down, converted all third downs, and one of them was like third and long. So uh, it's just his knowledge of the game. When people compare him to Tom Brady, it's that type of thing. He just knows how to win a play, and his football IQ is completely off the charts. And these are the things you're not going to see on perhaps those little films that people put on like Twitter and what have you. You fall in love with the Mahomes, the Herbert, and the Allen throws. Like, look at this throw. Look at this throw. It's fantastic. I'm not taking anything away from him, but nothing's going to be impressive with a 14-yard scramble on a third and 14, right?
Yep.
So nothing's going to be impressive. That's not something to like wow you, but when you really think about it, that's more of the football IQ and the awareness that he really displayed this weekend, and good for him. I've been saying this, all year, when talking about the Browns, the Bengals, and all other teams. I'm loving this new breed of teams coming up. Out with the old, in with the new. I'm all for it. Even though that, like, if you're a Burrow supporter, that must mean you hate, Justin Herbert, which I think is idiotic. It could be enough pie for both. So, game recognized game. And I'm recognizing that Burrow was fantastic this past weekend, and Mahomes. Not sure if it's performance or just arrogance. Mainly, always want to go for the big plays and what have you, but no other word than say that he completely shit the bed in the second half, and I think they took that lead for granted.
Yeah, I'll try not to be redundant in any regard. I do agree with you that, like, hey, there's plenty of love to go around between Burrow and Herbert because they're both superstars.
Yeah, but you know how that is with draft classes, right? Like,
Yep.
you have the Eli, Big Ben, and Rivers debate. Like, you can, you have
You'll
to say
have the debate, but what is not debatable is that both of these guys are superstars,
Yeah.
and so were Phillip, so were Eli, and so were Big Ben, right?
Well,
And they
two of
were
the
all in the
three
same draft.
were superstars. Right. So
Hey, listen, he's got it. He's got the records where they count, the most. So what's crazy to me in this game is agreed, right? Like when it was 21-3, it's like, all right, can we just get to the night game at this point?
exactly.
And then something very critical happened. The Bengals found a way on a screenplay to get into the end zone to take it down to 2 possessions, right? So now it's 21-10. And Lou, this goes back to I'm gonna forget which Chargers game, but the one against the Chiefs the second time, right, where they went for all of those fourth downs, right? Like, and the one that perplexed me the most was the one right before the half where they refused to like just kick a field goal and take points. I live by a few rules in football. One of the cardinal rules is you have an opportunity to score points before halftime. You better score those points. But I don't care if it's 3, it's 3. And good news, like you just said, you're getting the ball back, right? So like you now it's 24-10 instead of 21-10, and you're getting the ball back. And the reason why you take the points there, it's all about this real thing in the NFL that people discredit, and it's called momentum. You know what I mean? Like, you just let Cincinnati get on the board. Then you go down, you're moving the ball well, and yes, Eli Apple makes the play. But they just scored and then just stopped you defensively in a big spot. Where does momentum swing? It swings to Cincinnati. And to me, that carried over in the second half. Dude, they had 83. The Kansas City Chiefs had 83 total yards of offense in the second half.
Yeah, but it was crazy. I would have never thought of that because I understand you talk about the momentum swung to Cincinnati, but it was the end of the half, and the Chiefs were getting the ball back in the second half. So the Chiefs could have easily been the master of their domain or their own control of their own destiny if they at least just did not go 3 and out, or if they put some points on the board and what have you to kind of deaden that momentum.
Well, so this is where the pendulum swung because now Cincinnati knows, hey, we held them out of the end zone in a big time scenario. We can do that again. Because prior to that, they were not holding them out of the end zone. Chiefs were moving the ball relatively at will. Like we said, this game was all but over. And it just swung that way. I mean, like Mahomes just looked rattled. And I like Andy Reid
and he wasn't even getting pressured.
They got at him, but like you said, with 3. Right. So like it was,
dude, do you hear what I said? On average in his second half, he had 4 seconds to throw.
Yep.
That's a long time. You're supposed to get that ball out of your hands in 2
Maybe
seconds.
that's too much time. And I think you mentioned chinks in the armor or some kinks in the armor for Mahomes. I think that kink has been there all year, and it's more about sometimes like some players just press to do too much.
Screw that. Let me tell you something, man. If you're finding people that are dropping, that many, in coverage and those too high safeties, that's on Andy Reid now. I feel like to the
Agreed.
point. Andy Reid, remember when he's with the Eagles? He's one of the best screen designers out there. They seldom throw screens to Kansas City Chiefs, I feel like, and they have the players to succeed and thrive in screen scenarios. That's how you start getting those. You start running the ball, and that's how you start getting those defenders that are dropping to start moving up now. So I'm not sure if it's on Mahomes, if it's on Reid. It sounds like a combo, but those it's just that's why I also kind of think it's arrogance.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's plenty of blame to go around on both of these losing teams from the games this weekend. So I'm sure it's a combination of Reid, Mahomes. I also think it's a combination of just like how different Kansas City's offense had to be this year when they went on this run. Like it wasn't about chunk plays anymore. Like we're used to watching Kansas City be on the field for 4 plays, eat up 80 yards, 2 minutes of clock, 7 points, right? Like that's what we've seen for the last few years. Now we're seeing 13 plays, 15 plays, 8 minutes of clock, and 7 points. So I just feel like the offenses look different, and they did force Mahomes into bad spots, bad throws, and it just kudos to the Bengals. This is what it comes down to in these big games. They adjusted.
Let me ask you a question real quick. I need you to do me a favor.
Yep.
Close your eyes now.
They're
You
closed.
are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, right?
Yep.
All right. This year, Mahomes' salary cap hit was like $5 to $7 million. Next year, it goes up to $36 million. Now your team has to make some drastic changes and cut some serious fat.
Yep.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm cool as a cucumber, 10 being I am scared shitless. Where is your concern right now if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan?
7.
Set that high.
Yeah. And it's I would say that low because salary cap's not real, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs have some people there to make those adjustments, but the clock's up, right? We know the statistics. When quarterbacks count for X against your cap, you can't point to Super Bowl winners anymore. That's why the name of the game right now in the NFL is win while you have somebody on a rookie wage scale. It says what it is. You can pay more players, but there will be chinks in this armor. I think it's all but certain. Mathau's gone. Tyrann Mathieu's gone. Right?
He's been saying stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
You can tell.
It was going to happen anyway.
It sounds like an obituary to his Kansas
Yeah.
City career. Yeah.
Yeah. And
he's still good, bro.
Yeah, he can still play at a high level. I'm very surprised with the last couple of years from him, right? Like, it almost felt like he was phasing out a little bit, and he definitely resurrected his career. Yeah. Can still play, can still be an in the box safety for somebody in this league for sure. But now you got to make serious decisions across your defensive line. You have a high-priced offensive line.
and those are 2 plays, like especially on the defensive side. You can't keep on losing talent on the defensive side. Their defense is not that good.
No,
so
exactly.
You're going to take a mediocre. I'm not saying they're a bad defense. You're going to take a mediocre defense and now take away some, big contributors. That's what I'm saying. How concerned are you? And now you're talking about the offensive line too. So what are they going to do with Orlando Brown? Are they going to tag him? That tagging is like the worst thing you can do when you're
for a left tackle.
Well, not only that, when you're also up against the salary cap too.
Yeah, because that's guaranteed money. So.
Exactly. So what are you going to do there?
They're going to have a lot of restructures this year. Don't be surprised if Patty restructures his deal and takes more of a signing bonus, but they have to work.
Guy.
Yeah, but they have the work. They have their work cut out for them.
Don't forget they got Tyreek Hill too on a really valued deal because he messed up that last time. So they decided now's the time to pounce because his value, even though he's great production on the field, what he did off the field really took away. Really, impacted his ability to get the really big payday. Like, hey, you're great on the field, but you're a risk off the field, so we're not going to give you that like huge number. So how much can you get from him?
The reality is they're superstars that they have paid. Kelsey, Hill, Frank Clark, Chris Jones.
Yeah.
All of their contracts balloon now, right? Like you're 2-3 years into those mega deals you sign them to, and those always get heftier. So I think there's avenues for them to get creative. I just don't know how much space the creativity frees up. And that's why for these teams, there are windows. Here's the good news, Kansas City Chiefs fan. You have a really, really good quarterback that's always going to give you a chance to win football games. Go look at the Green Bay Packers, right? Like they stroll through the division every single year because of their quarterback. And you can't, I'm not believing if you want to say, oh, they got a new head coach or they got Devontae Adams. It doesn't matter who's out there. As long as number 12 is out there, like they're fine. As long as number 15 trots out for you guys, you'll be competitive. But that's a soaring division right now, so you're going to have to find ways to be creative and keep some talent there.
And it's crazy because like here we are, we crowned them like the next dynasty. Oh, after the Patriots, they're going to be the next dynasty. But look at the last 3 years. Ready? Won Super Bowl, lost conference championship.
Yep.
I mean, for me in the biz, we call that a downward projection there.
Yeah,
it's a slide. So
yeah. But if I was a fan of a mediocre team, I'd be like, I got to watch a lot of football over the last 3 years too, right? Like meaningful football. But that's why there's windows, man. And a lot of that window is predicated. So I don't want to make this all about the Chiefs. I do want to give the Bengals some hype, some love.
You're right.
Their coaching staff adjusted. So Lou, I laughed because I mentioned how this kind of dispels your whole coin toss narrative. This kind of also dispels your year too early now.
Hold on. If they don't win it, they're still a year too
early. There's no such thing. They're in the game. It's really hard to get to this game.
Listen, Weston, I'm going to tell you something right now. Over the last 2 weeks, I don't know shit about shit when it comes to football. I've been 0-6 in these playoff games.
I was 1-1, and I didn't even believe one of them was going to happen. I just did it to protect my heart, and because that had been working for me, I really had full confidence the 49ers were going to win that football game. That being said, Joe Burrow, I mean, he's as cool as they come, man. Like you look at the week before, just getting rocked 9 times, and still found a way to lead his team out.
That's what's so great about him, because you're saying he's gotten pressured 60 times in 3 playoff games. That's 20 times a game, bro.
It's a good thing he's only like 22 years old, right? Because his body wouldn't hold up.
No, he's old. He's like 25
already.
Yeah, he's an older guy that came out.
All right. Either way,
it's like 24.
He's got some youth about him. Let's leave it at that. But Kansas City Chiefs, man, I give you your dues from 4-11 or whatever it was last year, or 4-12 or 5-11, whatever it was, to winning your division and playing in the Super Bowl. Like, all credit, not giving up, down 21-3. A lot of lesser teams, younger teams like the Bengals would have mailed that in and been like, hey, I'm happy to be here. And I think that has a lot to do with the moxie of these young players. I hate putting it on the coach because I'm just not a big Zach Taylor
fan to begin with. Yeah, I agree. I think they win despite Taylor as opposed to win.
So I am rooting for the Bengals in the Super Bowl, even though it's easier for me to wish that if my team had to lose, they lost to the Super Bowl champions. But I want the Rams to have a Super Bowl hangover because I believe that is real as well.
Let me tell you something, Weston. Coming from a guy who's probably who follows a team that's lost to the last 12 Super Bowl champions, it does not make you feel any better.
I know, you're right. In the short term, it does. Leading into the game,
you think I'm going to feel better if the Bengals win? I'm like, oh, the Chargers beat the Bengals 41-17 in Cincy. I don't give a shit about that.
I saw this meme today that said the Green Bay Packers and the 49ers are the only 2 teams in the NFL that beat both of these teams playing in the Super Bowl right now. And then somebody was like, so the 49ers won it all because we beat the Packers too, right? Like
that's That's some people's logic there.
All right. So shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals, Who Dey Nation. Like, good for you guys. That's awesome. I'm actually like stoked for their fans who the last time they saw even a Super Bowl game, Boomer Esiason was their quarterback. So pretty awesome stuff. A lot to be excited about if you're in the Cincinnati region of Ohio. Less to be excited if you're in the Cleveland section of Ohio because you're watching your home state potentially celebrate victory that you're not able to celebrate and haven't for quite some time. All right.
You sure you want to do this? You sure you want to do this? What's coming up next?
I don't. So Sunday night game, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Los Angeles Rams. I'm gonna start as a fan. Can I start like my take as a fan?
This is your show. I'm just here to watch, man.
All right. I'm depressed, dude. Of course, you know what I mean. Like, it's hard to get to the championship game of your conference. It doesn't happen all that often, and a very winnable game that you were up 10 points to start the fourth quarter, and losing 20 to 17. Like, it's frustrating. And what makes it even more frustrating is just the roller coaster of the year, like 3-5, 2-4 at one point, 3-5 at another point. Everybody trashing the coach, trashing the quarterback, myself included. Let's move on. Let's get Trey in. Let's begin this thing to end the year the way they did, and then to go on the road and beat the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card weekend, and then go on the road to Green Bay in the snow and beat Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau when nobody gave you an opportunity to then play a team that you beat 3 weeks prior in a must-win, win-in game in their home stadium, and you had manhandled them earlier in the season. It just felt like everything
it was really a home game for you guys, really.
Yeah. It just felt like everything lined up, like it just kind of felt like.
And then hold on, and then the Bengals, earlier the Bengals. Then you saw the Bengals go to the Super Bowl, so now you start thinking like, oh, this is history rewriting ourselves. It's like back in it was 89 or something like that,
88.
So it's like, oh, like we're gonna, but you just already seeing the narratives being on NFL Network, Good Morning Football. Shout out to Peter Schrager, please come on our show, and like ESPN and all that stuff. So you're starting to see all that narratives, like what's gonna possibly like the foreshadowing that this is too good to be true. Bengals, Niners, 88 all over again.
Yeah, it was. So I'm deflated, right? It is what it is, right? Like at the end of the day, if you were to survey me week 6, week 7 of the season, I tell you this day was so far from reality that I would never even been considering that. But I did kind of say throughout the year, like they're still in playoff contention. They're still in playoff contention. Like even with that losing record because of the slate of the NFC. Was that always opportunity? There was always that opportunity.
We need someone to go back and listen to the tapes because there was times when you wanted to throw Trey Lance in there. I'm like,
yeah.
So long.
I'm the first to admit that, right? That I wanted to because. All right, and what makes it even sadder as a fan because to me it inevitably is the end of Jimmy G, right? And I remember what it felt like when
sad.
It makes me a little sad, but sad for this reason. That the fan in me is sad, right? Because the fan in me roots for whoever is on my team. I remember what happened in 2017 when he came over and we started like literally just rattling off 5 straight wins when he started. And the 2019 season, like here's the reality, dude. In the 2 full seasons he's been healthy on this team, we've gone to the Super Bowl and played in the NFC Championship. So is that because of him? No. Is he part of that? Yes. Like he's part of that, dude. Like he is part of a win,
so is the training staff, Wes. I'm sorry. I think your team was always formulated around great defense and good and solid running game. And this is just from an outsider standpoint. And I get it, you want to be all sentimental and what have you, but I mean, hopefully you're not gonna have those oh shit Jimmy G throws anymore because Lance is behind center and what have you. I feel like I don't know. I'm not a Jimmy G fan.
I'm a fan of the person. I'm a fan of the way a fan of the way he carried himself through like an impossible situation all year and like still battled. I mean, bro, this fan base was trashing him. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But his teammates love him, and that's hard to see because it felt like there was something special in the locker room, felt like there was good stuff going on, and year over year those things change, right? So that's like the fan side of me of just loving my team. Here's the reality side of what I saw.
Here we
I saw,
go.
I saw a team that shouldn't have won this football game anyway. I saw this is the downside of playing the same team 3 times in a year. Making adjustments just becomes harder. Like everybody is like you're already counterpunching the counter punch because like the familiarity of these teams with one another. The Rams beat us at our game, dude. They controlled the clock. They tried aggressively to run the football. They were very, very physical on the offensive and defensive lines. They did what we intended to come in there and do to them. They didn't do it well. They just did it better than they had been doing. I mean, they still ran for like 70 yards as a team. It's not like they ran for like 200 yards on us and did all of that, but we only ran the ball 50 yards, right? And that's not a recipe for us winning. We didn't really rattle Stafford all that much. I know people like point to that whole Jaquiski Tart dropped interception. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you know what? Guess what? Jalen Ramsey had one too.
yeah. And listen, does it help if he makes that play? Sure. Do you want your safety to make that play? Absolutely. Would that have won the game for us? Probably not, because we weren't moving the football in the second half well anyway. Like, just go back and look at the stats. And I could be really, really critical, but I know a lot of people want to trash Shanahan right now. I'm like, why'd you get away from this? Why'd you punt then? Why'd you punt on that 4th down? Why'd you do all that? And what I love about Shanahan is like, I do the same thing all over again. And he's right. Like, if you kind of go back and watch the tape, dude, which I did and reluctantly, it's about execution, man. It's about execution. And the lack of execution in this came from 2 areas. It came from the quarterback and it came from the offensive line. Shanahan had the right plays called. They just didn't block up. They didn't go for what they normally go for. If I was to fault Shanahan for anything, I'm still perplexed why the best offensive weapon in the NFL this season, number 19, Debo Samuel, did not touch the ball with under 12 minutes left in the game once. That I'm perplexed with. But what I can tell you is if I go back and watch the tape, Debo and Ayuk both should have had 10 plus catches in this game. Both of them. Just running open in the middle of the field where we do our best work. And it's overlooked because on one of them, Jimmy hits Kittle for a check down that he gets a first down. Another one, Jimmy hits Elijah Mitchell that's on a check down that's turned into a first down. So you quickly forget those things like, oh, they converted a first down, they made plays out of it. But like the reality was there was home runs sitting right behind them, the first drive of the game where he just badly missed Kittle in the middle of the field. These are the things that I know we can get better at. And this is where you hope Trey is inevitably better and makes the offense different. I believe that this offense was pared down to suit Jimmy G. You mentioned those Jimmy G oh shit throws. The only time I feel that way is when that man holds the ball for more than 3 seconds. Because I'm like, now he's got to make a decision, and I'm not going to like what the decision is. When that ball comes out in like 2 seconds, like hits that 3rd drop step, that 5th drop step, whatever it is, and that ball's out, I'm very confident where that ball's going because to me, it says his number 1 read is open. Those aren't when you see the mistakes. It's like when he has to get through a progression or has the opportunity to get through a progression, that's when mistakes are made. So I think the future is bright for the 49ers. They have all their studs lined up. They're moving into that moving on to the rookie quarterback who's under that and will be a 2nd-year quarterback, but still under that rookie wage scale. Free up cap room with Jimmy moving on. Who knows? You might even get, some usable collateral in exchange from him from other teams to recoup some of what you gave up to get Trey. But you got people coming back from injury that missed the year. Like Elijah Mitchell looks really, really good. Debo's back. You got to feel like you're going to get more from Ayuk with a different quarterback. You still got Kittle, still got Warner. You're gonna lock up Bosa for a long time. We have some really impressive young linebackers in
Fantastic
Greenlaw
linebackers.
that can complement. So I feel like the future is bright. But if I can this game came down to execution, and the team that executed better won. The Rams executed better. So like, shout out to the Rams. Shout out to Sean McVay. He had his team ready enough to play and ready enough to win this game. Look, they didn't do anything special either. Cooper Kupp does what he does, but you could still beat him when he does that. I mean, dude, if you surveyed me after the game and you told me that the Rams only scored 20 points, I'd say we won that game.
Yeah, listen,
It is what it is.
You were talking about execution, and you said the Rams, executed better. I'm going to say something even furthermore. I think even though the Rams executed better, I feel like both teams played extremely sloppy.
Yeah, it was not a well played football game by any means, dude. By any means, it was just close and competitive.
I'm going to double down on it. I think both coaches made a lot of errors and coached pretty damn badly, both McVay and Shanahan. And this is where we're always going to differ, Weston. So I'm sorry, this is my personal belief, but the 49ers punted 3 times from the Rams side of the field and never went for it on 4th down. And Shanahan did a fantastic job of explaining the whole thought process of why he did not go for 4th and 2. And he would have went for it if it was 4th and a yard or what have you. But this comes to one of two things for me. Is Shanahan just that timid, or does Shanahan really not trust Jimmy G? Now, if Shanahan didn't trust Jimmy G for any 4th down conversions, why not throw something in there that the Rams haven't seen all season? Why not throw Trey Lance on a 4th down and 2? Lance can throw a 2-yard pass, so you can run for it too. Now he's a completely different skill set than Jimmy G. I was very perplexed about this. Is when you're a game away from the Super Bowl, you pull out all the stops, and I just felt like Shanahan failed to do so. Shanahan is probably one of the best play designers, best play callers there is. Now, there's just more than just being a play designer and play caller, and I felt like it was not his best game when it comes from a coaching standpoint. All that being said, I really thought the Niners were going to win all game because, like you said, they held the Rams to 20 points. The game always felt low scoring, slow, methodical. That's not the Rams style whatsoever. This had a ridiculously eerie feel of like the Packers game. Like, oh, Packers aren't scoring. This is a problem. The longer that a team that plays the 49ers don't score, the worse chances they are going to have to win, because you're just keeping the 49ers in it. And that defense is just going to keep on getting better and better as the game goes on. So low-scoring games will always benefit the 49ers. So I started getting that same vibe from the week prior when they played the Green Bay Packers. But you're talking about, you're going to feel, you're a little sentimental as a fan about Jimmy G moving on. But I'm going to make you feel a little better. Jimmy G in the 4th quarter in his 6 postseason starts, 48.6% completion percentage, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 178 passing yards, and a 28 QB rating. Now, 178 passing yards and 6 postseason starts in the 4th quarter. Mahomes 2 weeks ago had 177 passing yards after a 2-minute warning. Just think about that. Trey Lance is going to bring something to your team that you guys don't have. It's going to bring another dimension to that offense. It's also going to provide you some salary cap relief to, extend your own players, because I don't think you guys are going to be big free agent players, but you don't need to be because you have a bunch of great players already on your team. So if you could just add through the draft and get some key, depth pieces from free agency, you guys you'd be almost, I'm confident that you possibly be back here next year too, especially the state of the NFC. So,
yeah. I last comment, we can move on from this because I'm exhausted from it, man. It's funny because like everybody I know just kind of like, dude, over the last few weeks, people that I haven't talked to in years are just reaching out to me and like texting me like good and bad and all that. And it's funny because I feel like I'm just widely known as this avid, fanatical 49ers fan, which is cool.
I will never text you during a 49er game.
Well, because you know better. You know how fanatical I actually am. It's in your I'm not going to respond to you anyway. So
I
it's just a
usually
waste
wait
of
until
time.
like Tuesday, like mid
You
afternoon.
do. Even after this, you're like, I just want to give you some time.
It's
How you
usually with
feel?
like a funny emoji, like a bear
Yeah.
waving or something, like trying to
Yeah.
like cheer you.
Hi, friend. Hi. But it's crazy because I'm like, I'm almost 40. Like, why do I need to be known as this like crazy Ravage fan? Like, I'd rather be known as like a crazy good husband and father and like, but yeah,
You'll get there, Weston, with
yeah,
the
I guess, but
because you want to why, Weston? You were a fan before you were a father and a husband.
I was a fan long before I was any of those things.
Yeah.
But so this is about Shanahan, something that I want to say, and I'm going to always tie it back to execution. Do I think Shanahan was timid? Yeah, a little bit. And I think history has that way of doing those things to you and also playing into the way the team's built, right? Like you said, eerily close to Green Bay. You keep up close in games. Like we can still play to our strengths. We can still run the football. We can still play defense. Like those are things that we do and we do well. So why take the high risk if you don't have to, right? Like it's not like the Rams offense was lighting us up. And I know you rattled off those stats about Jimmy, right? Like 160 yards passing in 4 championship games or whatever, 4 postseason games or whatever it is. But our team's not built that way, right? Like we're not built to be Patrick Mahomes, who is going to throw for 177 after 2-minute warning. I get the point you're trying to make.
Yeah, but when you
I'm bringing this back to Shannon.
When you get to this part of the season, you're gonna
got to be able to do that.
Yes.
Teams are going to take away your strength, right? Like, so you have to be able to do that. And I think those things will change. But I think there's a misconception of Kyle Shanahan out there because people will point to the collapse of the Falcons in the Super Bowl where he was the offensive coordinator, the collapse in the fourth quarter of the 49ers in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they'll point to this game as well in the NFC Championship. Obviously, none of this has matters in the NFC Championship in 2019 because we lambasted the Packers and that game was over midway through the second quarter. And that was all done running the football, by the way. Like Mostert was bananas that game. But people will say in the fourth quarter of those games, Kyle Shanahan offenses have been outscored 53-0.
Yeah.
And that's on paper is one of those stats that is alarming.
Does he like?
But if you go back and watch, it comes down to execution in those games, right? Like, go back to, I'll use the 49ers against the Chiefs as a prime example. Kyle was still aggressively calling that game. You just had Chris Jones make 2 tremendous plays on defense where he batted down the ball, where like on one of them, dude, George Kittle literally might not have showed up for the 2020-2021 season because he's still running untouched. You know what I mean? Like, so it's Kyle's doing those things. I go back to this fourth quarter. Like, yes, maybe he wasn't going for it on those 4th down opportunities, but even the plays that are called, these players it's execution. He's calling the play. It's execution.
Weston, all right. So, agree with yes or no? Is Kyle Shanahan perhaps the top? I think he's the best offensive mind coach in the NFL, but is he top 5 offensive minded coach? Yes or no?
100%, yes.
Are the 49ers one of the best rushing teams in the NFL?
Top 5, 100%.
Okay, all right. So we're not disagreeing there, right? So It's 4th and 2. You have one of the best offensive-minded coaches and one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. Why could he not? He ran for it on second, ran for it on third. I know that probably got his ass a little puckered. I get it. But this is the time you pull out your best play, your most creative play. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You can't tell me. I always said I'm not a believer in this Rams team, and I felt like there's no way they were going to stop him 3 times in a row, within 2 yards, 2 yards. Yeah. And because that's how much respect I have for Shanahan. It's just that, like, I think, maybe the ghost of, Shanahan pass caught up with him and he's like, let's just play field position. That's what he said. He's like, we were moving the ball. We had such great, momentum, and then boom, those 2 plays, Weddle stopped one of the plays and what have you. And I think that kind of shook him. And he's like, you know what? I just want to be safe. And in the NFC Championship game, Weston, you're not playing not to lose. You're not playing to be safe. He had to have gone for it there, and then rely on your defense like you've done all.
Yeah,
all season.
especially when you're playing with house money. I get it. And I'm trying to dispel the notion that Kyle's not capable of winning the big game. Like Kyle's not losing. He's not losing these games because of himself. Like he might not be doing himself some favors along the way, and like you said, your ghost of Christmas past might be catching up with you. My hope is going into this new era, to quote Jay-Z, even in defeat, there's a valuable lesson learned, so it evens it up for me. I'm hoping that's true right now. Like maybe I agree. I think Kyle is a mad scientist. He is a mad genius, and I'd love to see that parlayed into a little bit more risk taking, to be a little bit more aggressive. Because in the middle of the game, man, 2nd and 7s, 3rd and 5s. I mean, he's designing mad scientist shit, right? Like, so you got to find it.
So why does he act like a turtle and go on his show?
I don't
know. I'm sorry. Listen, I get I'm on the total other side of the spectrum. I'm like
I don't have the answer either, and I'm right there front and center.
I am not right either. I'm like your Madden player. Listen, you gotta go for it almost every 4th down. Maybe that's just more of my identity. My identity to my team. That's kind of like that now.
Yeah.
But he's on the complete other side of the spectrum too, and he has to. We both, I think, would have to go towards more of the middle and meet halfway there.
Yep. So when all said and done, Rams won the game, and candidly, deservingly so. I agree with you. It was an ugly game. It wasn't well played. Especially when there was no points scored in the first quarter, I was like, this plays right into what we're doing, right? Because they weren't jumping into some early lead like they did last time and got up on us 17-0, and we had to claw back. Because if that happened in this game, we weren't making it back, right? Like, so they had to claw back on us. Like I said, we were up 17-7 to start the 4th quarter.
It's funny though. You said 100% right that like the Rams did exactly what you guys have done to them. And I felt like McVay is like, I can't outsmart Shanahan. Shit, I'm just going to lean over his shoulder and copy off of him, because they were
beat them at their own game.
Try to be more physical, running the ball. And what really differentiated their offensive game plan from the ones prior against the 49ers, I feel like a lot of quicker, shorter passes, because they knew their offensive line couldn't hold up against that pass rush of the front 4. So I felt like there was a lot of quicker routes, bubble screens, things of that nature, just to keep the offense, and not in plus territory, not negative, like 2nd and 12 type stuff. Yeah. So I felt like he just literally copied off of Shanahan's game plan there.
Yeah. How special is Debo Samuel, by the way, though, dude?
He is fantastic, and I think the Niners are playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers, because they're going to franchise tag him if they can't afford him and they're going to franchise tag him as a running back. Yeah.
He's a wide back, as he calls himself, self-defined.
If I'm his agent, I'm saying you're an idiot. You're a wide receiver.
You are WR, bro. WR1.
Shit, you threw that pass. You're a quarterback.
Franchise a quarterback.
You got to franchise him as a quarterback.
Yeah. They'll come up with something. There's no way they let that man walk. And he doesn't want to play anywhere else, because who's going to use him to his skill set better than Kyle Shanahan? Nobody. Kyle Shanahan could put this guy into the Hall of Fame if he wants to.
You did quote Jay-Z. I will quote Wu-Tang Clan: cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills, y'all.
And he'll get the money. They will back up the Brinks truck for him. Watch out. Him and Bosa will be paid this offseason at some point. Probably not until summer, to be fully candid with you, because they don't have to. They're still both under rookie contracts. They're not even in the 5th-year option of Bosa's contract yet, and they're not in the 4th year. Debo,
when you're not in the 5th year out, like you want to do it before the
you got to do it before that bubbles, no doubt, because then you're playing with house money for a little while too, right? Like you can push out the bubble of it. You can pay them
Yeah.
heavy up front and signing bonuses, and you can push out the bulk of it 2, 3, 4 years down so it doesn't close your window and you still got money to play, especially as the salary cap's going to rise. We all know it's going to come back. So you play that game of cat and mouse. All right.
Our last segment.
Fuck the Rams. All right, here we go. Annual superlatives to close us out today. I can't believe we've gone this long already. Lou, I do have in front of me our midseason awards.
I have mine. I didn't look at yours.
I have mine too. I don't have yours. Okay. So at least we can cross-reference.
Yeah.
So do you want to, let's just do it like this. We'll give our annual award. Keep in mind, this is all based on regular season because that's how they give the awards.
Exactly.
You can't just be looking at playoffs. You might cheat a little bit, and I'm sure they all do too. Like, it's hard to overlook that and make some justification for it.
Yeah.
But the first award that I have up is about the rookies. So
let's do the rookies.
So we'll start with our offensive and then defensive rookies of the year. Lou, I've been doing a lot of talking this evening, so I will let you do the honors and tell me who you got as your offensive rookie of the year.
All right. So this is who we think is going to be, or is who we would give it to?
I have based this on who I would give it to, and I'm more than confident in 90% of these scenarios that's who it's going to be.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So for offensive rookie of the year, there's Jamar Chase, and then there's everyone else. Jamar Chase had a fantastic year, 81 receptions, over 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns. He ranked 4th in the NFL in receiving yards, despite ranking 21st in receptions. So what that basically translates, Weston, is that he's a big play machine.
18 yards a catch.
Yeah, for real. He's ranked 5th in the NFL in 20-plus yard receptions with 22. He's 2nd in the NFL with 40-yard-plus receptions with 8. He ranks 3rd in touchdowns. His PFF grade is 83.1. And he was one of the sole reasons why, him and Burrow, that connection that they had throughout the year, that the Bengals were able to win their division. I'm not talking about getting to the Super Bowl because we're not focused on the playoffs. It's Jamar Chase, and I had in the beginning or the middle of the year that it would be Jamar Chase as well. So looks like in the middle of the year, I was onto something right there.
Yeah. For anybody who wants to fact check us, you can go to YouTube and you can, We're Talking Football, and you can check out the Week 9 episode. That is the week that we gave our mid-year superlatives. We were actually joined by Mr. Jason Aponte for that show. And Lou did have Jamar Chase at the halfway point. I had Jamar Chase at the halfway point. And I have Jamar Chase at the end of the year. So common theme. Lou, you rattled off all the stats. I won't be redundant at all. The only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my victory lap when I told you when we were doing our pre-draft coverage and saying that this is my guy.
You said he was the best player in the draft.
I said he was the best player in the draft, and I would say he did very little to discredit me throughout the. He played a little disappearing act for a couple weeks, but he came back with a vengeance, and he's continuing to do such.
He made you look smart, and that's hard to do, Weston.
I know, no shit, man, no shit. Because God knows I do plenty to make myself look dumb.
Yeah, you're all looks. You're beauty.
I just got these beautiful blue eyes. That's all I got going for me, bro. And if you catch me from the side, my profile, forget about it. It's a wrap. Not in a good way. But that look out NFL because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is going to be a pretty dangerous tandem for quite some time.
Yep.
So who you got for defensive?
Well, week 9, when joined with Jason Aponte, I said Micah Parsons, and we are currently 2 weeks from the Super Bowl. I am still saying Micah Parsons. I will rattle off some stats too. 84 tackles, 20 tackles for a loss. Let me repeat that. 20 tackles for a loss. Keep that in mind, listeners, what I'm about to explain. He had 13 sacks, 30 QB hits, 45 pressures, 3 forced fumbles, all while lining up in multiple positions.
3 passes defensed.
Yep. Okay, so I talked about, I repeated myself a couple of times there, not because I'm Louis 2 times here, because the numbers were staggering. 20 tackles for a loss and 30 QB hits. Myles Garrett has never had 20 tackles for a loss. He's only had 1 season of 30 QB hits. That's Myles Garrett. Chandler Jones and Von Miller only has had one season with 20 tackles for a loss and 30 QB hits. This guy basically had a fantastic year. Arguably, you could probably put him in the running for defensive player in the year, but you know me, I don't put
You don't subscribe to rookies in those competitions.
Exactly. And his PFF grade, if you believe in those things, 89.8, almost elite status, that 90 mark.
Yeah, he was special all year. You rattled off the good stats. I love the player comparisons just to put in perspective for some recognizable names that have been in consideration for these awards and Defensive Player of the Year awards in the past. I had Micah Parsons week 9. I got Micah Parsons right now. These are two that haven't changed. And, to me, what that shows is consistency of play throughout the year. Specifically for rookies, that's really hard to do, right? Whether it's Jamar and teams adjust and cover you differently, or that's Micah and run away from you or run at you to take you out of the play. Being as young as they are, to still adapt and to play at a consistent level for 17 weeks. Pretty impressive. So I think
real quick,
not only ours, they're the definitive winners of these awards. Like I have no doubt in my mind.
Real quick, okay, we both believe Jamar Chase. Now, if you had to say who'd be the runner-up, who would you say is the runner-up? Because I'm gonna be a homer here. I think it should be Rashawn Slater would be the runner-up. I don't think Mac Jones did anything really that fantastic this year, in my opinion. I thought he played okay, but not in the level of Rashawn Slater.
Yeah, I think, and this is not to be in agreement with you, but it would have to be Rashawn Slater. The unfortunate side of the things is like offensive linemen don't win these awards, but very well
runner-up. I'm talking about straight
very well deserving of it. If I had to be like contentious a little bit and challenge you a little bit, I might say Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle had a pretty impressive, thinking about who his quarterback is. He had a pretty impressive year, and he's got an it factor about him. He can line up all over the field. You can do a lot of like creative things with him, but that's me just being the devil's advocate and trying to find a different runner-up to maybe disagree with you a little bit. But I would be very, very hard for me to argue. Rashawn Slater, if you equated his year and made offensive line statistics and there was a calculation to compute those to wide receiver or running back stats, he'd be right up in this conversation, but he plays offensive line. So it's unfortunate for him, but very fortunate for the LA Chargers because you got a gem.
Yeah, I'm going to call you out on that. You said devil's advocate. I think that's just a polite way of saying being a dick. So, all right. So on to the next one.
Yeah. On to the next. Let's go with offensive and defensive players of the year.
I'll let you go first. How about that? I felt like I stole the rookie thunder here. Why don't you go for offensive player? Because I have a feeling we're going to stay in the Bay Area here.
Almost didn't. Very hard to ignore what one particular player did. So week 9, I had Cooper Kupp. I mean, he literally was the triple crown in every single category in receptions, yards, and touchdowns halfway through the season. News alert, or, spoiler alert, he ended the year as the triple crown winner as a wide receiver too. But I'm going to be a bit of a homer here, and I'm going to say Debo Samuel. Production-wise. So just to put this in, just answer me this, and I'll let you get into the stats. But are you going to say Cooper Kupp as yours?
Yes.
Okay. So if you think about like a side-to-side comparison, Cooper had what, 140. Let's sound this out together, right? We'll talk about this one together. Had 145 receptions. Debo had half of that, and had almost half the targets that Cooper Kupp had. So in perspective, Debo was 5th in the league in receiving, 24th in catches. We just talked about Jamar Chase, what he did with the ball in his hands at 18 yards per catch. Who was better than him in this league? Debo Samuel at 18.2 yards per catch made him number 1 with any receiver with more than like 15 total catches for the season. He had 6 touchdowns, puts him as 25th as a wide receiver. But what he did differently this year was when you saw him truly become that offensive weapon, and we're talking about offensive player of the year. So 365 yards on the ground, 8 rushing touchdowns as a wide receiver, 8 rushing touchdowns, and average 6.2 yards per carry. So for running backs with more than a certain number of carries, he not only led the league in yards per reception, led the league in yards per carry, and plays wide receiver. I think it's very hard for anybody who's watched the NFL this year to argue that he was the best offensive weapon in the NFL this season. He plays on my team, dude. He was injury riddled last year. I saw a glimpse of how special he was in his rookie year when we went to the Super Bowl. But I don't think anybody saw this coming from a production standpoint. So what aired me on the side of my guy versus the guy that's probably more obvious and what you're going to say is I'm still salty about not playing in the Super Bowl. So I'm taking my hometown pick and I'm going with Debo.
What did?
Oh,
Yeah, what did? Weston, remind me, because like I said, I have a great memory, but it's extremely short. What did Jay-Z say about jealousy? That's a female trait.
That's a female trait.
All right, so week 9, I had Cooper Kupp, and lo and behold, I still have Cooper Kupp,
which is the right pick, dude.
And I'm going to tell you something. You were talking about this is only for regular season. The playoffs changed my view on Debo Samuel. Let me tell you why. Prior to the playoffs, I would have had Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor, Debo. And I know in this playoffs is not supposed to change your opinion, but now it really was between Cooper Kupp and Debo Samuel. You stated that Debo Samuel had 14 touchdowns. Well, Cooper Kupp had 16 touchdowns, 2 more touchdowns than him. And I know you're saying Debo Samuel you broke it down from more of like a per play, or more just basically saying that he's more explosive than Cooper Kupp. And that's fine. That's you making your point. But when you have Cooper Kupp being the Triple Crown winner, the most receptions, most receiving yards, and the most touchdowns from his position, I think right then and there, it's just, you don't have to break it down per play or showing that he's the most explosive. He had the most catches, most yards, most touchdowns. I think for me, it might not be as enjoyable to watch as Debo. Debo is way more enjoyable to watch, but from a sheer standpoint, and yeah, think about it. This is, Bobby Trees got hurt, probably week 7 or what have you. So teams are still trying to focus on him. Their running game wasn't good for I'm going to say for the majority of the year. It wasn't until towards the end Odell started picking up his game. So he was solely the only offensive weapon, and teams still couldn't stop Cooper Kupp. But what makes Cooper Kupp so fantastic? He's not explosive like Debo. I get it. So he's not sexy like that. It's his intelligence. It's his methodical practice. It's his methodical ways of knowing where he has to be on the field, how to get open, his release, all that. It's something that doesn't go as noticed as more as that 60-yard touchdown run by Debo. So I'm still saying Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, listen. I had him written down. That's how I knew all of his stats to end the year. So it's the right pick. It's what it's going to be. And I don't tout Debo to take anything away from what Cooper Kupp did. I mean, shit, if he didn't play on a division rival, I'd be a huge fan of Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
He does everything right and everything well. Like, listen, I use Debo stats to fit my narrative. You know what I mean? That doesn't take away from what Cooper Kupp does. And you know what he does really, really well that is always overlooked and not talked about?
Run block.
Man blocks his ass off, and he blocks
at
the line of scrimmage.
He had some great blocks. I don't know who it was on against the Niners, but he had some fantastic. And they tried to do the same thing with Odell Beckham, and Beckham got like blown up by Bosa.
Bosa just destroyed Beckham, but he just does everything that's asked of him and does it all well. He just seems like the consummate professional, the ultimate team player. And he had a season that is going to be really, really, really hard to duplicate those numbers, and he's deserving of it, and he's going to win it. He's going to win it. So pretty awesome year. I got to watch a lot of it because he's a division rival. Like, yeah, it's not flash in the pan. It's not sexy, but it's consistent, and consistency beats sexy 10 out of 10. It's just the way it goes.
That's how I got my wife. That's what I told her.
Just consistent. Just consistently a pain in the ass.
All right, let's go on the defensive side of the ball. Once again, I'll let you start first.
All right. So I had TJ Watt at the halfway point. Spoiler alert, I ended with TJ Watt. Hard to discredit the body of work, man. 64 tackles, 22.5 sacks. That's first in the NFL. 21 tackles for a loss, 7 passes defense, 5 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. He did it all, man. Did it all on a struggling Pittsburgh team that just didn't feel like Pittsburgh teams.
How can you say a team is struggling when they make the playoffs?
Yeah, they should not have been in the playoffs.
I agree, but they still did.
They still made the playoffs, but it just didn't feel like a typical Steelers team. Just hard to argue with what he does. I know we talked about, like, in the offseason, we were talking about our top pass rushers, that, like, he seemingly gets a lot of these sacks that, like, he's in the 9 technique, he's wide 9, and somebody boots out to him, like, right into his lap on passing downs. There was far less of that this year. Far more
but
production of his own sacks.
You know what's still maddening about TJ Watt? And yes, he all right. So for example, like Max Crosby, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but he has a boatload of more pressures than TJ Watt. But
TJ gets home. TJ gets home, man.
So it's just like, how, if you really look at it, like, is TJ just extremely overly efficient? But that's been his thing this whole career. He gets home, but it doesn't have like the amount of pressures don't really correlate with the number of sacks. So
how much is that? Beats flashy 10 out of 10.
Okay.
And I do think it's a product of just being efficient. Like, when he gets pressure, he gets home more than he misses.
Yep.
Like, at some point, if that's what the statistics tell you year over year, it's not a statistical anomaly. It starts to become the narrative and the truth.
And good players don't become lucky.
They make their own luck.
Exactly. In the week 9, I had defensive player of the year as Myles Garrett, and I was feeling really good at that time, but he kind of fizzled out towards the end. I had TJ Watt as well. I won't go too much into the stats because you really broke everything down. But what I'm going to say is this: he did have 22.5 sacks, which tied for the most in the season ever by Michael Strahan. Don't forget, Michael Strahan got that cheap ass sack against Brett Favre. What's really impressive, though, all right, and then we can go to the next superlative, is that TJ Watt got 22.5 sacks in 15 games with no cheap ass sack. Michael Strahan did it in 16 games. So There you go.
I was at that game, and we missed the sack because the game was over, and we were walking out of the stadium and saw it on the big screen outside the stadium that Brett Favre called an audible and bootlegged right into Strahan.
Yep.
All right. League MVP.
This one's tough.
Do you want to end with that one? Do you want to come back to that, or do you want?
Yeah, we got to come back to that one.
Okay, let's come back to that. So let's get into comeback player of the year.
Okay,
you go first.
This is going to be controversial, because I'm going to say, for me, this is a player who I think it should be. I don't know if I think it will be, but I'm going to talk. It's a quarterback, obviously. It's the one who had the highest completion percentage at 70.4% this year. It's the one that was ranked 6th in passing yards at 4,600 yards. There's the one who was ranked 8th in passing touchdowns with 34. I know you're looking perplexed now, like, what the hell's going on? It's the one that was ranked 2nd in the league with a quarterback rating of 108.3. Your comeback player of the year, and this is how much I'm not a hater. It's Joe Burrow.
It is.
Outside the box. It should be him. And I had the comeback player of the year. I did have a quarterback. It was Dak Prescott, but and Dak Prescott played well, but I just can't ignore what the numbers that Burrow put up.
So halfway through the year, we were laudering between Dak Prescott, and I was pounding the table for Nick Bosa, coming off that ACL. played significantly less games than Dak, than Burrow last year, right? So he really, truly missed a season of football and came back and tore. And I could probably still sit here and pound the table for him. But to me, this was a toss-up between two quarterbacks. I even gave Derwin some consideration after all of your lobbying on this, so I had to go back and investigate.
Vote for Derwin. Vote for Derwin.
Yeah, I know that who has now changed his number to number 3, so I might
That's fire.
I might have to get that jersey because that's fucking
fire.
A powder blue number 3 Derwin James jersey.
Yeah,
that's
fire.
That'll just sit on my rack. I'll never wear it. Just look at it every once in a while. Listen, I was a big Derwin fan when he came out, but it's Joe Burrow. There's no other way to put it. It's Joe Burrow. I have him as well. And I won't lie, I am partially influenced by his playoff moxie and poise. If I was really just going off the regular season, this probably probably points to Dak.
No. Let me tell you why not. Okay. So don't forget
37-10. That's hard to to dispute, you know.
Well, you know what? Dak got 5 cheap ass touchdowns against the Eagles' backup players, first and foremost. Yeah. And secondly, the Bengals, who are a notoriously worse franchise than the Cowboys, won their division. I know the Cowboys did too, but their division's the Cowboys are playing the NFC least. Are you kidding me? The Bengals are playing in the AFC North. They beat up on the Steelers. They beat up on the Ravens. And this is before the Ravens were pure shit because they lost Lamar Jackson. They beat up on the Browns. Still, even though they weren't great from a record standpoint, they were still a really competitive team. I'm sorry, man. It's Burrow all the way.
Yeah, not arguing. I have Burrow too. So real quick, I need to go back a moment, and I need to go back to the Defensive Player of the Year because I missed out on all of my thunder on something that I wanted to say. I just wanted to call this to your attention. Can you recite the name of the person that has most consistently appeared on my Defensive Player of the Week list that nobody knows?
It's the guy who leads the league in tackles.
Foyesade Olukun Lou. 192 tackles this year.
I know. He led the team.
2 sacks, 4 TFLs, 6 pass defense, 3 INTs, and a forced fumble. How is this man not in the Pro Bowl? That's criminal. That's literally criminal. And I had that as a bulletin to bring all of my Defensive Player of the Week rosters to come back. To come back to him. It is literally my lifetime dream to have him on our show because I will admit to him that I am his biggest fan in the entire league outside of family that he might have, right? This guy is my guy. If he's ever a free agent, I will literally pay his salary to go to my team. I want him. All right. So we did come back Player of the Year. Let's get into Coach of the Year, and then we'll just go back to because we're running long, and we'll get to league MVP.
Okay.
Coach of the Year, who you got?
All right. So week 9, I had a controversial pick that both made the show go trending with you and Jason's reactions when I listed Coach Urban Meyer, the Coach of the Year. Probably for more of the things he did off the field, for him to pull in that type of tail.
Spoiler alert. He can't be your Coach of the Year because he didn't finish the season.
This is semantics, Weston. Semantics, please. All right. So I was a little off, just a little off. My Coach of the Year is Mike Vrabel. And let me pound the table and tell you why I personally think. In 2021, the Titans became the first team in NFL history to record at least 8 wins against teams that finished the season with a winning record. This is without A.J. Brown. This is without Julio Jones. This is without Derrick Henry. And they play some damn good teams, man. They beat up on the Rams. They beat up on the Bills. So
Niners, they beat teams with winning records, that's for sure.
And they also broke, and on the flip side, they also broke an NFL record. They used 91 different players this season due to injuries. When you talk about next man up, I get it. You don't really believe it though.
No.
So for Mike Vrabel to put his players, especially a lot of backup players, in a way to succeed,
to have the
to get the one seed,
yeah,
against teams, competing against, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals. I'm sorry, man. That is, I personally think it should. I know this is without playoff implications, like what happened during the playoffs. I get it. I think it has to be Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. So I toyed with LaFleur here from the Green Bay Packers.
Screw that. He ain't nothing without.
Doesn't matter, man. You coach who's on your roster, consecutive, 3 years in a row, like 13 wins plus. It's hard to dispute that, doing the right things. But I too ended up with Mike Vrabel for all the things that you just said.
Who'd you have in week 9?
Oh, sorry. Week 9, I had Cliff Kingsbury from the Arizona Cardinals, who was the number 1 team in the NFL at that point in time.
Yeah, but you should realize that, and it's an NFC.
Hey, I was picking the award based on where we were in the season, and when your team is the number 1 ranked team in the NFL in that point in the season, and it wasn't even close back then, bro. Like, I mean, they were.
I think my Urban Meyer pick was better than your Kingsbury pick.
Probably. I mean, shit, it looks better now at the end of the year. But the most impressive thing to me about Vrabel is everything that you just talked about. The 91 plus players lost at some point due to injury, losing 3 superstars in Derrick Henry, Julio, and AJ Brown for majorities of the season. And forget the next man up mentality. Just giving your team the belief that they can still win the game despite all of that, playing the caliber of teams that they played and beat, and still ended up with the 1 seed. Like,
yeah,
honestly, dude, they didn't even have to end in the 1 seed to get this from me.
I agree.
They made the playoffs.
That was
that would have been enough.
The chef's kiss.
Yeah, you make the playoffs with what went through, especially with that quarterback.
Top 12 quarterback, yeah.
Bro, if he's even your top 15 next year, I'm looking for a new partner when we go through this. All right, let's get to the icing on the cake here. Save the best for last. League MVP. Definitively tell me who you had at week 9.
I had Lamar Jackson, and the reason why I had Lamar Jackson is because he literally outproduced 9 NFL teams with the amount of production from a passing standpoint and rushing standpoint and total yard standpoint. And I thought that was insane. Like, one player outproducing, teams. So many of them too. What was that? A fourth of the league. He's outpacing. Unfortunately, that type of that style of play, that type of play, is not long lasting in the season because all those bumps and bruises and what have you. So it caught up with him. So I had Lamar Jackson. Right now, I'm going to tell you who it's going to be, and I'm going to tell you who it should be. It's going to be Tom Brady because they're going to want to send him off. And I get it. I'm not trying to discredit what he did. He led the league in passing yards, touchdowns, and he led his team to a 13-4 record. I get it. All right. So I'm not, disputing. He does have, that is a fantastic case to make. But all that being said, I think it should be Aaron Rodgers. He led the league in quarterback rating with 111.9. His TD to interception ratio was insane. 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. That is mind-boggling. He was 3rd in completion percentage with 68.9%. I would have liked to see that go a little more around that 69 mark, just for jokes purposes. But he also led his team to a 13-4 record, and he was the first seed in the NFC. And I'm going to be frank here, his surrounding cast wasn't as robust as Brady's was. Brady had Evans, Godwin, 3 quality tight ends, a really good running back. And also he had Brown. Antonio Brown was balling out in the beginning of the year too. So
yep. I don't disagree with you. It probably should be Aaron Rodgers. I have both of those names up there.
Yeah, you have to.
You can't. I just can't overlook at times that touchdown interception, like 37-4. Like, that's absurd. I'm if I'm giving the award, it should be Aaron Rodgers. If I'm giving the award, I'm giving it to Tom Brady. And I'm the biggest Brady detractor that there is. But like when you see 5,300 yards, 43 touchdown passes, averaging 300 a game, a rating north of 100 for the year. And oh, by the way, did I mention he's 44 years old? Like, it's just hard. And you can flip a coin and you're not wrong on whoever you choose of these two. My coin landed GOAT side up. So I'm going to the GOAT.
It will be Brady, but I would vote for Rodgers if I had a vote.
Yeah. It's hard. And then it's also like which one is like less smug, And I go Brady.
Is this
it's a popular. This is the MLB Hall of Fame voting coming into play. All right. So, I should have said halfway through the year, by the way, I had Kyler Murray as
you were really on that Cardinals bandwagon.
Hard to argue with what he was doing early too, man. And doing a lot of it through the air. All right, so that wraps us up. We recapped the championship weekend. You noticed that you didn't hear much from us about the Super Bowl. We're saving that flavor for next week when we also come back and recap Senior Bowl this week. So next week is our 1-year anniversary, Lou. We began this with our Senior Bowl coverage. So before we get to that, is there one name that you can think of off the top of your head that is somebody that you're interested in going back and watching practices, doing your scouting on, and seeing in the game this weekend?
Well, you know me, I'm always going to stick to the trenches here because that's just who I am.
Is there anybody from Wisconsin Whitewater in this game?
All right, but hear me out. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Last year was Quinn Meinerz, and this year I believe his name is Travis Jones from UConn. Defensive tackle. This is going to be a meat and potatoes draft, I would say, for the most part, and it's going to be a lot of defensive tackles, defensive ends, and edge rushers. So I think Travis Jones from UConn. I saw a lot of his tape. He's looked fantastic during practice. I'm going to be interested to see how he does this weekend.
Nice. My player that I'm looking for the most, I don't even know why, because I don't even think my team has a need for it, but is Christian Watson, the wide receiver from North Dakota State, former Trey Lance teammate. Can't ignore what Burrow and Chase are doing. And I'm not saying these two gentlemen are even on the same level as Burrow and Chase, but what I think is interesting about Watson is he's definitely a mid to late round type prospect. So he's not somebody that you have to relinquish your assets to get, but he's a big body guy. He's got some speed to him. So I'm just interested to see how he plays out against a higher level of competition this weekend, because I think he's gonna have an opportunity to totally bolster his draft class, like his draft standing, just like a lot of these people will this weekend. So I'm interested. It leads us into our year anniversary, but again, that wraps us up here at We're Talking Football. Lou, as I always do, rely on you as to where we can be found.
You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WTF Pod NFL. And Weston, tell them where to find our pretty faces.
If you want to see these stunning smiles and these striking eyes, go to We're Talking Football on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, sign up for those notifications so you know when the videos get posted.
Make Weston pay. Subscribe to our channel so Weston drops some serious do-re-mi at a restaurant for me.
Listen, the goal is 500. We get to 500 subscribers by the end of the 2022 season. 2022-2023 season. Lou is going to be treated like royalty. Dude, I have my word. We'll do a show from where we're eating to prove it.
Dude, I'm not even going to eat for like 3 days. I'm going to fast, bro.
Don't do that. Your stomach's going to shrink, and then you won't even be hungry, and you'll wait.
You don't have to worry about that. I got some PEDs anyway. So.
Lou, always a pleasure, my man. Enjoy the evening, and we'll catch up soon, brother.
Take it easy, man.
Adios.